Hello everyone, and welcome to my Royal Family official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The celebrations for the King's return to what is, in some ways, his hometown had a little sad tone a few days ago. After all, without him, this area would not exist. Poundbury in Dorset was a stretch of farmland controlled by the Duchy of Cornwall until the 1990s. The Prince of Wales, at the time, set about transforming it into his vision of a contemporary town constructed on traditional lines. Modernist architects and city planners dismissed it as cutesy, out of date, and doomed to failure. It is still alive and developing nearly 30 years later for the simple reason that people enjoy living in a tidy, picturesque town that looks like a Georgian film set, has over 200 businesses, 2,500 jobs, 5,000 residents, an excellent school, and neither a yellow line nor a traffic warden. "Thank you for our magnificent home," says Julie Wargent, a recent Northamptonshire visitor, as the King and Queen go for a walkabout, unveil a bronze relief of themselves, and open a new garden named after the Duke of Edinburgh. This is his first trip to the country since becoming king. However, when he has moved on, there remains a whispered question: will there be any more? After all, he is no longer Duke of Cornwall, and Prince William now reigns supreme. Is this Charles's heartfelt farewell? Almost definitely not. Yet it echoes a frequently asked question by various institutions and organizations. What will happen to the monarch, once known as Prince? The former Prince of Wales tied his name to hundreds of organizations as a result of being the longest-serving heir to the throne in history, and a restless one at that. The most well-known is the Prince's Trust, but he also supported organizations such as the Samaritans and Marie Curie. They were all warned that once Charles became king, this arrangement would have to be put on hold. At the time, it seemed reasonable. However, now that the coronation is done, they are all clamoring for some form of direction on their future affiliations so that they may plan accordingly. It is a huge duty for the king's private secretaries, especially since the charity sector has grown dramatically since the last change of power. There are all of the late Queen's patronages, almost 600, plus the 420 that the King accumulated as Prince. The new Prince of Wales has his own set of organizations to which he is devoted. So, who gets the King, who gets someone else, and who is left to fend for themselves? There was never going to be a quick fix for any of this. However, it is becoming a more significant issue for the organizations he founded, and even more so for those that bear his name. We now have an answer. The Prince's Countryside Fund is the first of his projects to take the plunge into a new post-Princess era, according to the Mail's new Royals section. It will be relaunched as the Royal Countryside Fund this week, WEDS, subject to government clearance. It will be an autonomous charity, but with his blessing, hence the royal designation. I understand that there was some discussion about naming it the King's Countryside Fund, but the King himself decided that this could be too restricted, better to look ahead, into the next reign and beyond. It was his vision and enthusiasm that got us here, and he is completely behind us as we continue in an independent direction, adds CEO Keith Halstead. It was created, conceived and formed by the Prince himself in 2010 to provide funding and training to smaller, family-run farms, which he has always considered as the backbone of the countryside. Ms. Halstead insists that the charity's day-to-day operations will not be affected. All of this will be a huge relief for the hundreds of farmers who have come to rely on it over the years. Since the late Queen's death in September, fund workers have received numerous worried calls questioning if the fund would continue at all. The same thing has been happening at other non-profits featuring the word Prince in their name. Exmoor Hill farmer Dave Knight, 39, is one of those who expresses concern when I meet him. He lives at Woodham Farm, the family's tenant farm for 4 generations, with his GP wife and 3 small children. He says that the local Exmoor Hill farming network is supported financially by the Prince's Countryside Fund. This contains 400 farms and agricultural companies. That, according to Mitten Knight, is what keeps the entire local farming community running. It now does everything from crop spraying certificate updates to bookkeeping lessons. It also serves as a social centre for persons who are frequently forced to live alone. I can't see how we'd fill the gap if it didn't exist, he says. Farmers on Exmoor, for example, would otherwise have to drive hours each way to comply with a new piece of red tape, and hence might not comply at all. However, it is highly doubtful that the new Prince of Wales will wish to take on all of his father's old charities, because he already has so many of his own. So when I tell the knight that the king has given the organisation the royal seal of approval, he is overjoyed. In a way, I suppose that's even better since it shows he cares and gives the thing more permanence, he says. Elizabeth Buchanan, one of the fund's trustees, has served on the board since its inception. She used to serve as the Prince of Wales' private secretary before returning to the family farm in Sussex. She claims that the prince enjoyed nothing better than sitting in a farmhouse kitchen and discussing the ups and downs of farming life. He knows farming better than anyone. He could see that life was becoming more difficult in a variety of ways, and he realized there were ways he could assist people, she recalls. Since its inception, the fund has attracted a diverse group of supporters. Miranda Hart, Alexander Armstrong, and Elizabeth Hurley are among its celebrity ambassadors, and Baroness Rock, author of Parliament's Rock Report on Farming, is one of its trustees. I meet Chris and Paula Williams at Brandish Street Farm on Exmoor, where they live with their 3 boys, 600 ewes, and 40 suckler cows. They enrolled in one of the fund's free farm resilience programs just before the lockdown. They claim that it has changed their fortunes. Experts urge them to revise their grazing plans and plan for succession. 2 of their 3 kids, both future farmers, have joined the network's Next Generation group. It also encouraged Paula, a farmer's daughter, to start a glamping company. When I explain that the king is giving the charity a royal seal of approval, Paula is delighted. Let's just hope it stays the same, whatever the name. Becoming royal does not only necessitate the king's approval, though that is critical in this case. The Cabinet Office's Constitutional Policy Unit governs its use to protect consumers from scammers claiming royal provenance. This was one of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's rookie blunders when they departed the UK in 2020 to begin their new life in the United States. They had surreptitiously developed a complete franchise centered on the SussexRoyal.com brand before leaving Britain. They were then told that they were in violation of the guidelines since they did not have permission to use the term royal. Despite their counselors' efforts to blame enraged courtiers at the palace, it was their own responsibility. The pair renamed their new company Archewell while gritting their teeth. Regardless of name, the Prince's Countryside Fund will always be known as the King's Countryside Fund. The trustees sincerely hope that he will continue to serve as the organization's honorary patron. On that point, they will have to wait and see, just like the 420 other charities who have previously had him as a patron. According to a palace official, all patronage decisions would be disclosed in due course. Aside from royal charity, there is also the perplexing issue of royal warrants. Those ceased to exist 2 years after the grantor's death, so Prince Philip's are no longer valid, and the late Queen's will vanish next year. For the time being, only the King can create new grantors, such as the Queen and the Prince and Princess of Wales. These are a very essential and treasured component of the international appeal of hundreds of firms employing tens of thousands of people. In other words, now that the spectacle and grandeur of the coronation have receded, the king's officials are getting back to the business of transferring from one reign to the next. All eyes are on organizations, such as the Prince's Trust. Does it really wish to rebrand itself as the Royal Trust with such a prominent brand name? Maybe not. We'll find out over the summer, no doubt. Poundbury, on the other hand, is now so prosperous that it no longer requires a princely champion. The villagers, on the other hand, are tremendously proud of their royal ancestors. Perhaps they could emulate the extremely ancient adjacent town of Lyme and add Regis to the end. So what do you guys think about this update? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like my videos, please press like and subscribe for more. I'll see you guys next time.